what a difference a year makes. Around this time last year, I was elected president with the slimmest of margins, 6 votes. And not long after, we received news of the restructuring. I'm not sure if the first years truly grasped what a scary time that was. I felt like I had just been promoted to captain of the Titanic. I mean, I was thrilled to serve my fellow students as president of the SBA, but being the last SBA president was not at all what I had in mind. That summer, I'd sit on my porch on North Windsor Street and I'd watch the hummingbirds buzz around the feeders that Lewis had put up. And those who stuck around for the summer would drop by and ask me about the future of our school. They feared the worst, and although I could not show it at the time, I did too. But in the face of that uncertainty, my colleagues and I resolved to make the SBA something the students could believe in, something to invest in. We started by asking, what's keeping people from caring about the SBA? Of course, you have to give them a reason to care. We started by making our meetings more accessible. With help from Professor Sand, we streamlined our parliamentary procedure because nothing makes a crowd's eyes glaze over, quite like a motion to amend a motion to call the question on a motion to extend debate. We started live streaming our meetings, as we are now, so those who couldn't make it could still follow along. And from there we got to work. Together we created the state and town relations committees to extend Vermont Law School's influence to the halls of power and make available this school's extraordinary brain trust for the benefit of all Vermonters. In November, the State Relations Committee's voter registration drive helped flip the Windsor Orange 1, one of Vermont's biggest swing districts. Now, thanks to the work of the Housing Committee, the school's housing listing website now has a rating system. This is an important first step to holding Ferguson management and the slumlords of South Royalton accountable. And thanks to everyone who ratified the bylaws amendments at the polls last week. The Housing Committee, the Town Relations Committee, the State Relations Committee are all now permanent fixtures of the SBA and will continue their work long after we all cross the Chelsea Street Bridge for the last time. Together we created 4 new student groups: the American Constitution Society, the National Security and Technology Law Association, VLS Improv, and of course, Space Law. I'm going to have a lot of free time on my hands, so I might drop by some of those meetings. Unafraid to spend. We presided over the largest budget in recent SBA history to make sure that every student who wants to make a change in this world has the resources to do so. Together we brought gender-inclusive bathrooms to Oaks Hall, making good on this school's promise of inclusivity for our LGBTQIA+ swans. After years of stops and starts, we made that happen, thanks to the careful stewardship of VP Riley and Professor Johnson. We transformed the hallway in between Library and Chase into the Dean Shirley A. Jefferson Gallery to spotlight art of the VLS community and to honor someone who has long served as its heart and soul. There remains no building or facility on campus named after a person of color. And I will see to it that before my time in South Royalton is done, the powers that be recognize the best friend that these students have ever had. We hosted Lieutenant Governor David Zuckerman and Attorney General T.J. Donovan, Vermont Bar Association Executive Director Terry Corsones, and of course, Judy Zegg from Safeline, Vermont. In moments of crisis or tragedy, this community sprung into action, as it always has. When Hurricane Michael devastated the Florida Panhandle, we coordinated a solidarity bake sale with the Florida State University SBA and raised $200 for the Florida Relief Fund. When the longest federal government shutdown in American history placed a strain on Upper Valley food pantries, we collected more than 50 pounds of canned goods for the South Royalton area food shelf. We are 500 miles from Washington, D.C., and I'm sure those who went on the spring break job fair in D.C. knows how long a trip that is on a bus. We made a difference in people's lives. We held 4 town halls this year and talked about everything from tenants' rights to the Green New Deal. We took a stand against the state of Vermont's cooperation with ICE in targeting undocumented immigrant rights activists. This year's Solutions Conference hosted important conversations about mental health and the legal profession, because you cannot expect to heal the planet without taking the time to heal yourself. We come from different backgrounds, different states, different coasts, different countries. Far from home, we make a new one here, on the banks of the White River. The spirit of Vermont Law School is the conviction that here, far removed from our families, our friends, our creature comforts, we have to take care of one another. I have seen the best of this community, and it will sustain Vermont Law School for years to come. My friends, there's a million more things I wish I could have done, but I look at all we've built together this past year, and I can't help but say to myself, what a difference a year makes. There are several people I'd like to thank before my time here is done. Right on cue, my mouth's getting dry. Now, appointing Parliamentarian King was probably the smartest decision I made all year. That happened at our first meeting, so you could say it was all downhill from there. This year has thrown a few dozen curveballs our way, and through all of it, Ariel has always been just a text away. Under our bylaws, no 2 officers work more closely than the President and the Parliamentarian. And it's been an honor working with someone so brilliant and so driven. And I'm hardly the only one eager to see how you will continue to serve the students as 2L trustee next year. Now, as long as I've served on the SBA, I've had the pleasure of doing so alongside VP Riley. In so many ways, Dave represents the SBA at its best. And I encourage all those who come after to look to his example. Through his words and actions, he has shown a tireless commitment to the students he represents, a duty that he's never taken lightly, or else why else would he have coffee with Dave at the crack of dawn? Even his candidacy for 3L Senator stemmed from his fear that the students might be underrepresented. It isn't terribly surprising that his peers returned him to the Senate next year with more votes than any other candidate. And who else could pull off a wooden bow tie? When others saw cause for concern in the consolidation of welcome back events, VP Shoppy saw opportunity. In the spirit of collaboration that makes this community so special, we threw a block party down Windsor Street. Mia repaired the SBA's fraught relationship with Crossroads, and when the chips were down, she threw a barrister's ball for the ages, and under budget, no less. Now, it cannot be overstated what a level-headed, stabilizing effect Treasurer Boyle had on this e-board. To give you an idea, earlier in the year, I attended an event on the lawn outside Yates. And when I got there, Elliot had this big grin on his face. I said, "What are you smiling about?" He said, "Your coat." It was then I realized I had worn my fur-trimmed coat to the Animal Law Society. But the budget process... Yep. The budget process at the beginning of the year is no small task, and Elliot handled it all with aplomb. And it is hardly an exaggeration to say that Secretary Young saved our semester back in January with 4 simple words: "I accept this nomination." I'd also like to thank Teresa Johnson and the 6 or so hats she's worn this year, Lori Rottmeyer, Sue Folger, and Ashley Zia, who have made invaluable contributions to the SBA's success this year, and my predecessor, President Cody Stryker, who is somehow still on the email list. But he left little notes of encouragement in my inbox all year, and he was always a phone call away when I needed a second opinion. Earlier this year, I was worried I didn't have a mentor. I felt like all my friends had a professor they could consult and confide in, and I felt a bit left out. And then I started my weekly meetings with Dean Jefferson as part of this job. From her example, I learned what it truly means to serve these students with compassion. I learned what true bravery looks like, to look injustice in the eye and not budge an inch, to see the very worst of humanity, but refuse to let hate wall off your heart. From her example, I learned what it means to be unafraid, to stand up for what you believe in. Dean Jefferson, you are the best mentor I could have asked for. Now, as previously mentioned, I'm fortunate enough to have my parents here today. They, like my roommates, therapist, and hairdresser, now have an intimate working knowledge of the bylaws and standing rules. It's all about support systems. Now, they made the 6-hour drive up from Pennsylvania this morning to be here. They left around 3. And that's just the latest example of the bottomless love and support I've received over the years. My dad likes to brag that he used to read to me when I was still in the womb. Only recently do I wish he sprinkled in some civil procedure readings. And when we had our breaking bread with the SBA Town Hall back in February, I made my mom's recipes for sauce and meatballs. Because in an Italian household like mine, there's no greater expression of love than cooking for someone and then guilting them into seconds and thirds and leftovers to take home because you're going to be hungry later. When you're the first person in your family to attend college, that degree you're earning, it might have your name on it, but it isn't just for you. You feel a responsibility to every member of your family who has loved and supported you, believed in you over the years, because they have a stake in your success. Mom and Dad, I love you more than I could ever say. Hello Swans, the future of the SBA is brighter than ever. Under President-elect Carre, I am confident the next SBA will continue our mission of zealous advocacy, not only for the students we represent, but for every person who finds himself in the struggle for a more just and equitable society. It is my hope that your righteous anger never dims, and that any injustice, no matter how small, continues to sting your conscience. Because as long as a child goes to bed in this country without 3 square meals, as long as the wealthy and the privileged enjoy a criminal justice system far different than the rest of us, as long as millions of fragile lives are caught in the undertow of forces much more powerful than them, our work is not done. The arc of the moral universe may bend towards justice, but it doesn't do it on its own. That's our job. A fellow Bostonian, Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, said in a speech made not far from here in Keene, New Hampshire, that life is action and passion. It is required of a man that he should share the passion and action of his time at peril of being judged not to have lived. Sharing an action and passion with you has been the honor of my life. And from the bottom of my heart, which today is fuller than ever, thank you.